Own discretion.
I'm Nancy Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. And welcome to this new format, seeing us on Friday.
Right.
Which is a very exciting thing. We're thrilled to be here. We've got a big show planned.
Yeah.
And I'm always thrilled to be here with my good friend.
Always thrilled to be here with you too, my good friend.
So should we launch into some news? Things in the news. I think a lot of people commemorated World Autism Awareness Day on Tuesday.
Yes.
Some people lit it up blue. Some people, have you seen that there are self-advocates that put two little eyeballs on instead of lighting up blue? I think that that's a fun thing. There are people who light it up brown. I don't know what the significance is behind that.
Either.
But
maybe somebody can tell us.
But lots of different things. We had a lot of friends at the UN, people who are regulars on the show that got a chance to speak at the UN. But one of the things that I thought was really notable, that Sesame Street, who has the fabulous character Julia, who is on the autism spectrum, in honor of World Autism Awareness Day, they introduced her family, which was very, I thought, a sweet thing, because I think it's important that we see Julia as a whole person and a whole
family dynamic, which we're going to be able to learn a lot from.
Absolutely. So what an exciting thing, and I think kudos to them. I got to say that, quite honestly, I think the biggest deal for me in the last month is, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the show, Amy Schumer announcing that her husband is on the spectrum, and that in fact that all the things that make him on the spectrum are the reason why she fell in love with it. And I actually watched her comedy special that where she talks about it. It's called Growing. It's on Netflix. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's hilarious. She's hilarious. There's a lot of stuff that is not for young ears.
Right.
But she's hilarious, and I thought that the way in which she spoke about him being on the spectrum was particularly lovely. And at one point she started to say something, and she said, "Let me stop, because it's important to me that I get this right and say what I mean to say," which I thought even that was lovely. And I think that's done as much for the autism community as Julia has done, and that's saying a lot.
It's done a lot.
Yeah, so love the fact that Julia has a family, because of course Julia has a family.
Right.
So that's a wonderful.
So yeah, it says her mom Elena is an art teacher, and her dad Daniel is an EMT who plays the saxophone. She has a neurological big brother, Samuel, and a companion dog named Rose. So we'll be seeing all those.
We love that. Absolutely love that. And it is all part of their initiative, Amazing and See Amazing in All Children, which I think is a fabulous thing, because we should be. All right.
Some good things happening around the country in terms of bills being passed.
Yeah, I mean, this has been very controversial. In Denver, the governor signed the bill authorizing medical marijuana, and boy, they have been slugging that out for a while.
They have been.
People on both sides and considerations and talking about that. Colorado has been a little bit ahead of everybody else in terms of legalizing marijuana for recreational use, and now they're a little bit ahead in terms of authorizing it for medical marijuana. I know a lot of parents lobbied the governor and said that this is something that they wanted. I've got to be honest, I don't know how I feel about this. I was somebody who was very resistant even to the CBD oil, but we covered a story, I think it was a Time article that really lined out what the CBD oil did and what it didn't do, and that there was nothing about it that was addictive, and that it had all these benefits without a narcotic effect. I don't know how I feel about medical marijuana for the treatment of autism, but I don't have a child, that is having seizures and having such extreme
Exactly.
issues. So it's one of those things
So
where
if
I
it
don't
helps
feel like
those
it gets away.
families,
Yeah.
right, I feel
Well,
like it's.
I to a certain extent, because if it helps those families, yes, but if the long-term effects are that it makes the child addictive, you know, I mean, I have concerns about that, but I
Right.
don't feel like I get to have a voice and weigh in because I don't have one of those kids.
Well, patients under the age of 18 will need 2 doctors to sign off on the disabling medical condition. This allows a person to use medical marijuana if they have a disabling medical condition, which now autism is categorized under.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I'm sure that they're congratulating themselves on having this 2-doctor policy. For somebody who has a kiddo that is in dire need, that's just going to be a hoop for them to jump through.
Right.
I don't know that that really protects the child against, you know, things like becoming addicted to this and having it be a gateway to something else. So, you know, we'll have to see.
Yeah,
we'll have to see, and we'll have to listen to the parents and see over a long-term period of time whether it's something that is safe and effective. But then in Albuquerque, in New Mexico, the governor, in New Mexico, you got to be celebrating today, right? Because the governor has signed a bill aimed at helping people with autism, and what's particular about this bill is that it removes age and dollar limits, which, you know, we're seeing. We've had Julie Cornack on the show, and of course she is a big proponent of people looking at the Mental Health Parity Act, because, you know, we have all these states that have
Right.
these laws that say, well, there is a mandate here, and you can get this much coverage between these ages.
Mhm.
And people have been fighting this and finding lots of traction in the Mental Health Parity Act, because that is a federal law that supersedes the state law that says if you offer this benefit for something else besides autism, like if somebody's in a car accident and they need this behavioral health, if you don't put a dollar limit or an age limit on that, then you can't put it on autism. So people have been finding their way around this, but this, you know, having a state say, so we're going to take those limits off, it's pretty,
Right.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, it is
pretty
big.
It means that, you know, more people are going to have more time to do things instead of having to fight this,
Exactly.
even though they would have won in the Mental Health Parity Act.
So this is a good thing all the way around.
Very good thing all the way around. I'm sure that, you know, there is an effect in terms of taxes, but that's a very good thing all the way around. So
Okay, so we'll
that-
take a break because we've got guests coming up.
do
We've got
have
a
guests.
guest via Skype joining us from Lineagen.
yes, and we've had Rena Vanzo on before talking
Right.
about what are the benefits of doing genetic testing. She's really going to line it out for us today, and also give you some information about how you can do it at a lower cost. Then we've got a young budding YouTube performer, interviewer on YouTube that's with
Right,
us.
he's here in the studio waiting to go on.
Yes.
Kenny Valdivia.
And we're thrilled to have him here to feature some of the things that he's doing on YouTube that we think you guys are going to love. So that's kind of what's going on. Stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Neurodiversity in parents. One big happy family? We hope so. Anyway, what is neurodiversity? Everybody's talking a lot about it these days. Neurodiversity means that there's a view that people with autism just have a different way of being, and they should be honored for that. And then parents oftentimes look at autism as a disability or a disorder, and that can create some conflict. We sometimes throw up our hands, neurodiversity or neurodiversity. There can actually be some issues around this that we need to think about together. First of all, neurodiversity could be positive because it can create more of a kind of a sense of acceptance in society. Yes, these people have autism, they're just different. It could possibly help create a sense of self-esteem that's improved in people with autism. They just realize, okay, I'm not damaged, I'm not bad, whatever, I'm just different. So that could be useful. On the downside, it could be an excuse to not give services to people with autism, to not have much empathy for their parents, and to not look at ways that they can be helped. And in many people that have autism, they do very well. Other people do not do well at all. They can't access services. They cannot enjoy their life. They're in pain. So it is important that we understand it's not just one issue. So how do we solve this when we look at neurodiversity? I think we have to look at it this way. It's kind of like when you have that big family dinner at Thanksgiving and everybody's around the table. You got your uncle, your aunt, your kids, your parents. Everyone has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mesh. And I think the way that we need to think about this is we need to respect each other's opinion, because actually we need each other. We need to be allies on this. The outside world is a big place for people with autism spectrum disorders and their families. We have to remember we're one big, happy, dysfunctional family, and we need to behave that way. We should respect each other, listen to each other, and we will all have a great time when it comes time to get together and celebrate the lives of people with autism.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts, frequently asked questions and answers for the autism journey. Now this one is specifically for teens and adults with autism. I get this question all the time. What's new and exciting in the medical world today for teens and adults with autism? So let's talk about them. TMS, Transmagnetic Stimulation Therapy, is something that is really exciting. I met with the author, John Robeson. Look me in the eye. He's a gentleman with Asperger's, and something I hope all of our kids to strive and grow up and be just like him. He's amazing. He talked about TMS therapy and how he became more social aware. His smile was more natural, and I definitely can better understand things around him in those social settings. Another really great treatment that we're seeing just a ton of research on in the last 3 years is cerebral folate autoimmunity. You know, in the 90s, they started putting folate in all of our different foods and products. Well, some people, they have found out, and specifically a high percentage of children with autism don't process folate like how they should. Go figure. They don't do it the way the books say it's going to happen. So cerebral folate autoimmunity is just a really exciting new therapeutic to work with your physician on and to look to see if your child is a candidate for that therapy. And another common thing that we're seeing in teens and adults, and we've talked about it before in Talk of Facts, is seizures. Very serious issue that needs to be looked at. Abnormal brain waves or brain patterns or epileptic activity in the brain definitely needs to be addressed in children with autism. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I know doctors that can go through and work and look at the child and perform a 24-hour EEG. What they're finding with some of these anticonvulsant or seizure medications is kids start to make great gains in speech, cognition, sleep, learning, by treating any type of seizure activity. So, and the other issue is pandas, not the cute fuzzy bears that we see in the zoo, but an issue that is happening with a lot of teens and adults on the spectrum, where you see a dramatic change in behaviors with these individuals, and often they have an inappropriate immune response. TACA has a great white paper, so you can go look up in the pandas definition what to test and treat for and talk to your doctor about. But know that if you see an extreme swing in behavior with a child that goes from one place to a very negative place, we're seeing a lot of teens positively responding to treatments for pandas. And the last treatment I wanted to talk about, and I'm super excited about, and this happens to not just work with younger kids on the autism spectrum, but also older children on the spectrum, teens and adults. It's called mendability. And a great study just came out of UCI in May 2013 about a multisensory approach for individuals with autism. The whole premise behind the therapy is very simple, making it a sensory-rich environment so neural connections can make new pathways or at least connect in that individual. So kids with sensory issues, auditory listening issues, speech issues, they seem to really just respond to mendability, and I was so excited to see that new research. More research is being done on it, And the beautiful part about Mendability is it's something parents can do on their own, administer with their child, and be connected to their kid as partners in the autism journey. Don't forget in any therapy or medical intervention to work with your physician and to do proper testing to know what your child needs and what treatments to pursue under a physician's care. So there's so many new things. I could go on for hours about new treatments and excitement, but there's the top ones that just have me so geeked here. But that's another Talk of Fact. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time and on Real Journey, Real Questions and Answers to help your autism journey.
Hello activists, let's talk about step 7. Recognize your gifts and abilities. Whatever gifts and abilities you had before autism entered your life, you have them now. And I bet you've developed some that you didn't even know you had. Those gifts and abilities are going to help you in your journey of parenting a child with autism spectrum disorders. Maybe you're a born researcher, teacher, negotiator, or organizer. Well, you're going to need all of those talents. And you could find a whole new calling. That's what happened to me. If you had told me 20 years ago that I was going to leave behind a career as a television producer to work as an autism advocate and activist, I would have said, you're nuts. If you don't think you have any special gifts or abilities, ask someone who loves you. They'll tell you what they are. I guarantee you, you have them. What's your special gift? Find it, use it, for yourself, for your child, for the good of all concerned. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism. And now we are joined by Rena Vanzo, who is Vice President of Clinical Services at Lineagen Inc. And she is here to talk to us about genetic testing. Welcome to the show, Rena.
Hi, thank you, Nancy, Shannon. It's great to be back.
Good to have you back. Tell us why genetic testing is critical for individuals with autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry you cut out for just a moment, but I'm guessing you asked why genetic testing is critical for people who have a diagnosis of autism.
That's
The very Okay, great. It's a very common question that we get from families and in some cases doctors as well. And what I always end up telling them, and I think there is a slide that we can show if you're able to put that up on the screen. Really, there are several reasons, but some of the most important ones that families will mention are the fact that it gives them an answer, you know, having a name for a condition that's maybe underlying autism. A lot of families will say things like, gosh, did I do something during the pregnancy? Did I not do something during the pregnancy that I should have? What caused this? And we know that autism, in large part, is hereditary or genetic in nature. So this is something that's really helpful for families to know. And then also having that genetic name, it can give us more of an idea about that child's developmental and medical trajectory over time. So for example, if we know a child has something like DeGeorge syndrome or Angelman syndrome, we will be able to give that family more specifics about the child's medical risks, and then also some guidance about what their capabilities are going to be, what things may work better for them in terms of treatment, or what things may be avoided. And then a couple other components that may be important for families. It all depends on the family, and it all depends on where that child is in his or her development. But families may want to know, could we have another child or a grandchild with the same condition? The risk might be higher if it is found to be something genetic, but it could also be something that is no more common than in the general public. But the bottom line is we can't give those numbers unless we know the underlying genetic condition. And then finally, a lot of families really appreciate getting access to a specific support group. Of course, there are lots of wonderful autism support groups out there, but I've heard families over the years say, well, what works for my child doesn't seem to work for anyone else, and vice versa. And so if we can take people who have a diagnosis of autism, give them a more specific diagnosis, as I mentioned, like Angelman syndrome, DeGeorge syndrome, 16p11.2 deletion syndrome, those families can come together in their group and talk with one another about what worked for them.
Okay, very good.
The story I always think about, you know, the website The Mighty. And one of the guys that was part of starting The Mighty has a child that initially they got a diagnosis of autism, I believe is what it was. But then upon doing the genetic testing, it came back, and I think they were testing to make sure, I think initially what the family thought was they were testing to look at potential Fragile X, but what came back was a very specific gene deletion that changed the trajectory of how they were going to treat it, because it wasn't just autism. It let them know what they might be looking at long term, so they rearranged their lives literally around it, and he left the job that he was in and said, I'm going to go do something else, and started The Mighty with a group of people. But it also gave, I remember him saying, we did an interview with him, and he said it gave me a community because there are so few people who have this gene deletion that they all are part of a family, that they connect through social media and they get together once or twice a year, and they were able to meet kids that were older, they were able to talk to parents, and that it put their minds at ease on a lot of things. And I always think about that story, because had they not known that, they would have been in a world of hurt and frustration, because you know, their child wasn't making the progress, doing the traditional things that were for autism. They needed some more help and support, and the family needed support for what was going to happen. So anyway, just a little side story of a family in which, when they had that information, a lot of these things that you're talking about happened, Rena.
Yeah, and Shannon, it's exactly for that reason that many medical societies, like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Genomics and Genetics, they all recommend genetic testing when someone has autism or developmental delay, so that we can give them these other elements to think about. I've personally been involved in several different support groups. I sit on the scientific advisory board for the Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome support group, or 4P- support group. And it's amazing to see these families come together year after year and share their stories, and just really feel this sense of belonging and acceptance among each other. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a really, so anyway, I took you a little off your game. What do you want to tell us next? Because you got a lot of good information for us, Rena.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, families are going to wonder, okay, genetic testing, now that I'm hearing about it, how do I get it? And one thing that I've experienced over the years, I've been working with Lineagen for over 8 years and talked to hundreds of parents once they finally get to us for genetic testing. And oftentimes they will have a similar story. And Traven, this is shown on slide 2 that I've sent, if you'd like to show it. But there's this long, what we call diagnostic odyssey. You know, family may be concerned about their child's development. They may tell their pediatrician, but sometimes they get into this wait and see cycle where we're not quite sure yet. The doctor doesn't want to give the child a label or unnecessarily alarm the parents. So they wait and see how the child develops and grows between appointments. And then at that next appointment, maybe they're finally ready to start addressing it. But sometimes it takes 2 or 3 visits before the pediatrician would make a referral to see a specialist like a geneticist or neurologist or even developmental pediatrician. And sometimes those specialists can have wait lists that are in excess of a year. So it can be very frustrating for the family. Finally, they're having someone tell them, yes, you need to go see a specialist, but then they're being told you have to wait until summer of 2020 to see someone. So that can be frustrating. And then there are additional hoops on top of that, because genetic testing requires pre-authorizations and a lot of documentation with insurers. So this whole process can be really frustrating and end up costing the family not only financially, but emotionally through that process of waiting. So what Lineagen has done is start a telemedicine program where families who now know they want genetic testing can go ahead and get it online through the comfort and convenience of home, but it's also aided by expert guidance. Physicians will review the family information, and genetic counselors are available to talk to the family through the process. So if you go to the next slide, this is a screenshot from what you'll see on mydevelopingchild.com, which is our as I said, new secure telemedicine website. Families can go in, enter information about their child's development, maybe the past medical history, any surgeries, reviewed by a doctor, and a cheek swab can be sent to the family's home. So we have a couple options for testing. Again, people can call and talk to a genetic counselor about what may be right for them, but there are components on the website. But what I've seen is that this really helps jumpstart that process. Families aren't waiting on a long list to see a doctor. Rather, they can have this important genetic information in hand when they go and see that specialist. So it speeds things along.
Okay, and will the cost of it then be covered by their insurance, or is that something that they would need to pay out of pocket?
That's a great question. And this is where, if there was a catch, everybody says, sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? We won't take insurance through that pathway. And the reasoning is because, actually, I should say insurance won't take us. We're using some new methods, the most highly advanced genetic testing technologies, including whole exome sequencing, and rather whole genome sequencing is available now. And that is so advanced that insurers aren't covering it yet. So we're making it as affordable as we possibly can for families to access these critical tests, like I said, online. And I'm happy to give the prices here with you guys, Shannon and Nancy.
Sure.
Our essential test, which includes deletions, duplications of all the chromosomes, including the doctor evaluation and guidance, that's $888. And then the whole genome sequencing, which is, again, the most advanced test available today, includes deletions, duplications, as well as sequencing through all the genes themselves. That is about $3,300 altogether. So I know there's maybe a little bit of sticker shock with that, but we do also give families access to that raw data so they have it, and that can be reanalyzed over and over in the future. And we have had such a great partnership with autism-live over the years. We're going to be giving a promotion code to all of the viewers today. So if someone does want to go online and purchase a test, if you use the promotion code AL15OFF, so standing for Autism-live 15 off, you'll get 15% off of those services.
Okay, there's the code right there now on the screen for
AL15 off.
AL15 off.
Okay, what else haven't we covered here?
I think it helps to give a snapshot of some of the conditions that can be diagnosed or ruled out based on these new tests. So that was slide 4 sent to you, Traven. Just families may wonder, okay, my child has autism. What are some of the conditions? I mentioned a few, but it is just so broad. Genetic research has exploded over the past several years, and new conditions are being associated with autism almost on a weekly basis. So this is just a snapshot of some of the conditions that the new test through My Developing Child would help us understand if a child had things like Wolf-Hirschhorn syndrome, 5P- or Cree-de-Shaw syndrome, Dupe 1Q21, Dupe 15Q, 15Q 11.2 deletion syndrome, the list goes on. So in over 8 years of testing that Lineagen has done, we've found about 30 conditions that make up the most common findings, and all of those are covered by these new tests. And again, if you have any questions, if you're wondering, well, what about my child specifically, don't hesitate to give us a call, and we'll make sure you get to talk to a genetic counselor. And that number is 801-931-6191. I'm sorry I didn't put that on the slide, but I can say it again. It's 801-931-6191.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Rena. One of the things we need to do is get some new names for some of those things, because I don't know how anybody remembers all of those. That's a lot of numbers and letters. But we thank you for taking the time to be with us and explain that. And again, the code, if you go onto Lineagen and want to order some of these, either of these tests, there is the promo code. It's AL15 off. Thank you, Rena, for being with us.
Thank you. This is very exciting.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And so we're going to take a break,
right?
Because we've got a guest who's here with us in the studio.
Kenny
We're so
Valdivia.
excited
Okay.
to talk with him. He
Valdivia.
is a growing YouTube star, so thrilled to have him here with us.
Excellent.
Stick with us. All right.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with your Talk of Facts, the autism journey questions and answers that you need to help your child make the progress they need. I'm here to talk to you about one really important item. A lot of people ask me the question, well, Lisa, I want to see this specialist in another state. How do I do that? You know, I don't own a jet. I don't have the ability to fly without great pain and travel. Not a problem. We know how to get this done. So I actually encourage families, even though in travel can be a tremendous hardship getting a child with autism through security, through the plane, and in the journey to where they need to go. We have a whole white paper on TACA about how to travel with special needs kids. So it can be done. So travel, we know that can be expensive. Not everyone has an unlimited supply of cash for air flights. We love and work with this group called miracleflights.org. They're fantastic. They will fly you and your child, so one parent, one adult, anywhere in the United States, one time a year. Also in the TACA document are places to stay. So often you will have people in your life that love and support your family and don't know exactly how to help. Ask them to gift you their travel or their rewards cards or coupons for hotel, rental car. That's a great way to be able to get maybe a hotel room that has a refrigerator or a microwave and that's close to a Whole Foods, so you don't have that added cost of going out to dinner, especially if your kid has a lot of allergies. It's important to note that there's not a pediatrician or a specialist by every Starbucks in the United States. Close does not always equal best. So I bring up the travel point so you know that travel is possible, number one, and often it's really going to help you get down the road faster for your kid and getting the answers you need from the specialist that knows what to do. So don't be afraid to travel.
Can you have a life with autism? Absolutely not. Give it up right now. No, that's not true. I'm here to tell you, you can have a life with autism. I have a life with autism, and it's a good one. When you start on this journey, you don't know what's going to happen. You really have no idea. You're kind of in shell shock for the first couple years. It could be as long as 5 years until you realize, I do matter to people. When my son was first diagnosed, I remember thinking I would go anywhere and do anything for him. I didn't even think about it. I just came way at the bottom of the list. However, after a few years passed, I realized if I'm not important anymore, then that means no one's going to be here for him. So how do you have this life with autism? It's not easy. It's never going to be easy, but it can be done. It's really all about support. And support is a word you're going to hear a lot when you deal with the autism power structure. And that means schools, government agencies, social service agencies that can help you. There are things out there that you don't even know exist. So once you start connecting with other parents, you're going to kind of find this treasure chest full of things that only they can help you unlock. But once you get that support, it could be a babysitter coming to your home. It could be a therapist to take your child out and get him into the community. You can either leave the house, do your shopping, go to a farmer's market, do whatever you want to do. And it doesn't matter if it's really only about 5% of your time. As long as it's dedicated to you, that's going to help. It's all about your willingness to find support and your willingness to accept change and your willingness to kind of stick up for yourself, because you're battling for your child and you have to realize you guys are connected. There's a bond between you and your child that can never be broken. And if you're doing well, then your child's going to do well. So finding what you need to be happy, whole, and healthy as a person is a way that you can have a life with autism. And that's important too, because if you have a life with autism, you can also give your child a life too.
If you're watching Autism Live, chances are you care about the life of someone, or perhaps many people, living with autism. You spend countless hours trying to make a better life for them. It may not have been easy for you to watch the show today. You know, sometimes you could be juggling so many balls in the air, you feel like a circus performer. I remember recently saying to a friend that as the mother of a son with autism, plus all the other challenges in my life, I feel like I'm carrying a tray full of glasses of water, and that if one of them topples over, the whole thing is going to go crashing down. This empowerment moment is all about you. Now, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but over the last 9 years in my autism journey, I've learned some things that have helped me shift from being a victim to having hope. See, I'd been in that place, down on the kitchen floor, on my knees, praying for answers of what happened to my child. I've been in that place, covered with blood and tears, after one of Wyatt's giant tantrums, where I said, "Where has my fairy tale life gone?" I have a feeling you're a member of that kitchen floor club too. It's been a process, but I've come from that place of being a victim to becoming an advocate for my son Wyatt and for many others as the executive director of ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today. Let's start with reframing the way you think about yourself and your child. I want you to say after me, "I'm an activist." That's right. I'm an activist, because just by watching this program, you are taking positive steps to make the world a better place for your child or someone else living with autism. You are a positive force of action in the world. I want you to start thinking of your so-called disability as an opportunity, because it's within our challenges that our greatness is revealed. That's where we find our courage and resiliency. And parenting a child with autism is one of the greatest challenges a parent can face. You have the choice to see this as a journey of self-discovery. Some people take expeditions to climb Mount Everest to see what they're made of. You don't have to travel that far, because parenting a child with autism is an expedition of the soul. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very thrilled and honored for the first time on the show. We have up-and-coming YouTube star Kenny Valdivia. And Kenny, we just can't wait to know everything about you. We've been sitting here chomping at the bit, waiting to be on camera so we could ask you. Tell us all about you.
My name is Kenny Valdivia. I was born and raised right here in the San Fernando Valley. I was born August 14th, 1995, Valley Presbyterian Hospital in Van Nuys. My whole life, it's been a big misunderstanding being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, growing up, going from school to school, trying to fit in with people, being in the special ed classes, especially being that I'm higher functioning on the spectrum. I didn't feel like I belonged in those classes. It's like, okay, what am I doing here? Mom, why can't I be in the other classes with the other kids? So like, for example, at lunch and recess, I would try to fit in with them, and yeah, they just didn't understand me, and that's where all hell broke loose, and I just, my whole life just trying to figure out like what's going on.
Where your place in the world is.
Yes, exactly.
Right. How old were you when you were diagnosed with autism?
An infant, I have no idea, maybe 3 or 5.
And what age did somebody say that word to you, autism, in connection with yourself? Like, at what point were you that you realized, oh, that's what I've been labeled, for lack of a better word?
Maybe like 10 or 11.
Okay.
Being that I was in the special ed classes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you say this is a misunderstanding. And
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Do you still identify yourself as being somebody who's on the spectrum? Do you think you are?
I feel like that, yes, because, for example, like when it comes to like public places, say parties, or just like any public scenario, I would try to converse with people, and like I just have a tendency of going off tangents. Say if I'm not interested in what's going on or what the topic is, I just blank out easily. I just lose interest easily if something's just not interested, and I just want to make it all about what I want to talk about, and just people just look at me like, oh, that's odd, especially with people of the opposite sex. Like, they just can't read me at all, and I just...
And that's a little frustrating, right?
Exactly.
More than a little frustrating. But now, how old are you now?
I'm currently 23 years old.
And you decided that you wanted to do something on YouTube. How did the idea come about? How did that all get started?
Well, the idea all came started because, like, for years, like, I was trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, because I went to public school through middle school, and then for the rest of my schooling years, middle of 8th grade to 12th grade, I went to this school called the Help Group, located in the Sherman Oaks section of the San Fernando Valley. And I felt like it was a better fit for me. In smaller school, there were kids exactly like myself. I was able to make friends better, but at the same time, I still felt a little out of place because it still had that like clique vibe and whatnot, especially at lunch and stuff. Like, I was like the anime kids and whatnot. I'm not a big anime guy, but just, yeah, it was a better fit. I didn't have as many problems as I did in public school, and it helped ease burden upon myself.
But then you were done with school,
yeah,
and facing this gap. How did you get from there to, I'm going to start a YouTube channel?
Well, okay, after I graduated from high school, I decided to take some community college at my local college in Mission College, located in the Sylmar section of the valley. I thought I wanted to do like animation, VFX kind of work, and college was just very stressful for me, dealing with student loans, financial aid, signing up for classes. It just took a huge toll on me. Then for a time being, I went to this vocational school called Exceptional Minds, which is located in the Sherman Oaks area as well.
We're very familiar
We're
with
very
that.
familiar with Exceptional Minds. In fact, I was going to recommend it to you based on whatever, but you went there for a while, so it didn't sound like it was a good fit for you.
Yeah, I tried to go into Exceptional Minds. I thought I wanted to be an animator or a VFX guy, but the work was just like too overbearing on me. Just like the computer stuff was just like, and just, yeah, I mean, I had a good time, you know, because I got to meet a lot of friends with common interests, like my love for animation, my love for movies. Yeah, I was able to make a lot of friends there, and I don't regret any moment of going to that school.
But it's not right for everyone. It's a very technical thing doing that work, so it wasn't right for you. So then you thought, I'm just going to branch out and start my own YouTube channel?
Yeah, but after that, so when I found out that Exceptional Minds wasn't what I wanted to do, I was recommended by the program director there to try out this program at Glendale Community College called Uniquely Abled, where they train you to be a CNC machine operator.
Right.
So I ended up doing that. It was fall of 2017, and I ended up graduating from the program. For a while, I was able to get a job in it, but the twist was it was only a 6-week trial to see if I was a fit for them, and I wasn't getting paid through them. I was getting paid through the Department of Rehab, and I was on their payroll. I was on the company's payroll, so they let me go. I tried finding other jobs in that field. No one would take me, and then all of a sudden I just decided, okay, maybe my fate is not to be a machinist. I feel like and I don't want to go back to college because I just was very misunderstood there, and I think I don't need college to be successful. I can think of so many people that didn't go to college, let alone dropped out, who are very successful, Mark Zuckerberg being one of them, who dropped out from a very huge school. And I just can't see myself going back to college, and I feel like I'm not a mistake. I was made the way I was made to help others around, especially I want my channel to expand to all the other continents, being that I've never left North America. It's one of my dreams to travel to other continents, places like Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and places in Europe like England and Italy and Spain. Just, yeah, I would love for my channel to grow. This way I can meet people on the spectrum in different continents.
So tell us about your channel and how it started.
My channel started, it was back in earlier this year of 2019. because for a long time I was hesitant on sharing with people about my diagnosis, because after I graduated high school, for once in my life, I wanted to be seen as a regular kid. For example, like my non-autistic friends, and for example, people at church and people that didn't know about me. And as of last year, my parents encouraged me, like, hey, try telling them about yourself, like, come out. So I was like role play with them, and after a while I like get it in my head, okay, and I would tell various people via email or sometimes in person, like I would pull them aside, and they applauded me for that, thanking me for telling them, and that now that they have a better way of helping me out whenever they feel.
So on the show, you talk about yourself and you talk about your hopes and your dreams and the things that you want to do, but you also interview other people on the spectrum. How do you find your guests?
Well, I find my guests, some of my guests I've featured have been some people from Exceptional Minds and another person from that Glendale Community College program, and also some old friends from my childhood who are also on the spectrum. And one of them, I had no idea who he was. His name was Jonathan Mitchell. He actually reached out to me. He was inspired by my videos. He said, hey, he reached out to me via email saying, hey, I've seen some of your videos. I'm in my 60s. My whole life, I have so many stories I would like to tell you. I would love to meet you in person and be interviewed by you and featured on your channel. I'm like, hey, that really touched me right there.
Well, I think you're going to see more of that. Nancy, do you remember when we had Jonathan on the show?
Yes.
He's we have a mutual friend of Christina Adams is friends with Jonathan, and he's an author, and we had him on the show. And he has a very unique point of view about being on the autism spectrum
Yes.
that I'm sure he had a good time expressing on your show. And as does everybody. I think everybody that I've met on the spectrum has a unique perspective on being on the spectrum. But I think you're going to get more of that, people reaching out to you and saying, hey, I'd like to be interviewed by you. Hey, I want to be on your show. And it sounds like that's something that you really enjoyed.
Yes, because like I said, for a living, like I just can't see myself going back to college. Like I just decided, like, okay, I don't want to be a paramedic or anything. I feel like I was put on earth to help out with autism.
So your goal then is to take this YouTube channel and turn it into something that is a job for you that has a paycheck that comes with it.
Yes.
And are you looking at, because that's, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to make a living off of YouTube. Are you looking at different classes on how to do that, or because sometimes they have workshops in that. They have a conference coming up in exactly that kind of thing. Are you interested in doing that, or are you going to figure it out for yourself?
Oh, it's a little 50-50, but
I like that.
Yeah, like I said, I would love for my channel to expand to all 7 continents, and I would love for people to reach out to me. This way I can go to different parts of this world, because I always enjoy conquering new land.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how can people find your channel.
Well, people can find my channel, just type in Kenny Valdivia Autism, and then it'll come up instantly.
Okay.
And how many videos do you think you have right now on your channel?
I am almost at 30 videos. I don't just interview people with autism, but on it I go very into depth with personal stories, as well as some of my dreams and my desires, and those being that I've always used entertainment as a means of an escape, to ease burden upon myself, to help me get through some of the roughest moments in my life. For example, like disputes with my parents, disputes with peers, just all the bullying I suffered growing up, and just, very...
Talking about it helps you to get through it.
Yes, and I would love, my dreams come true, people that I've looked up to. For example, Usher, his music has always been an escape for me. The first time I ever heard him was when he released this album called Confessions back in 2004. My aunt had bought his CD, and every time I hung out with her, we would always play the song, I would always play it on repeat, and it was just like a breath of fresh air. And ever since then, I listened to all of his prior stuff and all of his stuff after Confessions. I've just been so hooked on him since, and it would be a dream come true for him to see this and for him to reach out to me. I've always wanted to meet him, as well as like other artists and producers, being their names like Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, people from Green Day. I just love music.
There's a theme here. You people, rappers and musicians that
Yes.
you're. So, well, that could be a very exciting thing. Do you have the ability yet on your show to Skype somebody in so that you can be there in your studio and then somebody can, or do they have to be there in person?
I mean, it would be a dream come true if like they reached out to me like via email or phone call saying like, oh hey, I would love to meet you in person, and yeah, then they can come to me and I
right.
can meet them. And
We'll put that out into the
Right.
universe.
I
And,
think you're going to have a lot of interesting guests coming up in the future.
yes, also other shout outs I want to give to Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Will.i.am of the Black Eyed Peas, Green Day, The Offspring, Metallica. Thank you guys. All of your guys' music. Mariah Carey, thank you. Al Green, Stevie Wonder. I can go on
You've
forever,
got quite
guys.
a list of
That is
people that you admire.
But I think it's good to have that list. We sit down sometimes and we'll say, who do we want to be on the show? And we make a wish list of like, who would be amazing, knowing that may not happen, but we write it down. The other day I made a new one of these lists, and of course Oprah is always on my list. But guess who else? We've talked about this before. I'd really like Michelle Obama. I would like Michelle Obama to come on the show. I would
too.
Right?
Right.
So but sometimes it works out. We've been able to have some of the people that we really wanted to have
that
on.
we never thought we would have.
Right. So put it on your list and put it out into the universe, and you never know what can happen.
Exactly.
You're an amazing young man.
You are. And you've made a
We've
lot
gone
happen
places.
so far, and I'm sure there's a lot more that's going to be in your future.
Yes, there is a fun fact. I did get to meet Ben Affleck. He visited
did?
Exceptional Minds. He was researching a role called The Accountant, where he played
Right.
an accountant with Asperger's.
Very
Right, and
interesting.
you got to meet him.
I made a video about that on my channel as well.
Okay,
There
great.
you go. And so did you have the opportunity, was he observing all of you while he was getting ready for the role?
He was.
There you go. So maybe there's a piece of you in that portrayal of the accountant.
Yes, and not just music, but acting in movies has always been another escape of mine, because I just love how I can pretend to be someone I'm not and just help ease burden upon myself. Action movies, even old westerns. I'm just a huge movie fanatic.
I
You can
love
ask me anything about movies. People
Very
that inspire me. Matt Damon, wherever you are, please, I hope you see this, because it would be a dream come true to meet you as well.
What a wonderful thing. And I love the phrase that you use, to ease burden upon myself. What a wonderful, wonderful phrase. We so appreciate you being here. Again, we want to remind people to go to YouTube or actually to just search. You can Google search Kenny Valdivia Autism, and his channel will come up on YouTube. It's a wonderful thing. We're so glad that you reached
Yes,
out
we're
to
happy
us
to
and that
have
we
you
had an
here
opportunity to have you on the show.
Good
All
luck
right.
to you.
I beg your pardon?
Good luck to you.
I thought I heard you say something.
We're really glad that you were here. Really glad that you're here.
Yes.
And excited about your channel.
Yes, I would just love for my channel to keep growing, more of my dreams to keep coming true. So far, I've been able to cross certain things off my bucket list. I've made some videos regarding some of my stuff, so check out my content, and let's just help keep easing burden upon autism. And I just want to help not just my dreams come true, but other people in all 7 continents' dreams to come true as well.
Wonderful.
It would be a dream come true, especially my channel to blow up so big, because like I would love it if someone were to approach me and ask me for my autograph. That right there will really, really touch me.
I think it's just a matter of time before that happens.
So.
Thank you, Kenny, for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Kenny.
We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
Talk of Facts. Welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman. I'm here to help answer some of the most common questions that come up on your autism journey. And this one's my favorite one. I'm out of money. What do I do? Well, I've yet to meet any family with autism that maybe once had money. By the time autism is rolled through their lives, their money is pretty much gone to the wind. So what I always like to tell families is we've spent a great deal of time on a budget series. Real life, practical guidelines for every situation you'll come across in autism. The series includes everything that you need to know about therapy and who pays for what, autism insurance and healthcare reimbursement tips and tricks. There's an entire white paper on that. Let's not forget medical intervention unique to autism and the common things that you need to do and how you can get those common comorbid issues covered through your healthcare insurance plan. Yes, that's possible. Some of the other great On a Budget series also includes, how to homeschool your child, what to do if schooling is not currently working out within the school right down the street. And the last one that's the most important to me is how do you feed these kids all of their allergy-friendly foods without going bankrupt? Well, that's easy. The last and most important paper Taka wrote was how to feed a family of 4 on the autism, gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet for $320 per month. We know how to do it. We've assisted families living on food stamps, and so we know the resources. And then we also provide some great tips on what's available through public assistance and also what are the current grants available through ACT Today or other foundations out there serving the autism community. We keep a current list. Currently, there's over 3 dozen national organizations providing financial aid for families living with autism. So, if you're out of money, don't let that be the barrier for success. Taka can help you with our entire On a Budget series at the Taka website, takanow.org, and we'll see you back at the next Taka Fact.
The life-threatening aspects of autism. Unfortunately, autism can be a life-threatening condition. There are things that are associated with it that parents need to know about. First of all, there's the risk of seizure. It's heightened in people with autism. There's also the risk of what they call elopement, which means basically running away. Elopement can lead to things like exposure, drowning if they get near bodies of water, and maybe being hit by cars. Being hit by cars is certainly something that seems to be emerging as a problem in people with autism. So what do? We have to take certain steps to keep them safe to start. That means at home. Let's look around the home first. Where are your points of entry? Barriers, doors, windows, access to bodies of water, gates, fences. You have to look at school because people with autism can sometimes elope from school or things like that, daycare. So you have to make sure that it is written into their plan, wherever they are, that people are going to be responsible. That may include a tracking device. For some people with autism or Asperger's, a tracking device might be useful. It might help people know where they are, so in case someone has taken them a place that they shouldn't be taken, kind of trick them. Sometimes you get that happening with your teenagers, or they're just a child that's unable to communicate or speak very well, and you need to know where they are. Consider that. There's a new generation of tracking devices. It can go in their shoe, can go in their jean, maybe in a cell phone. And I would also add that one of the most life-threatening aspects of autism is sadly being bullied, socially excluded, things like that. That's always happening in people with autism spectrum disorder. People bully them, exclude them. The risk of suicide is unfortunately very high. So do not be afraid to probe, ask uncomfortable questions, see what's happening. Even if they don't tell you, you need to ask other people at school what they know, what they've seen. Even though it's an uncomfortable thing, we do need to be aware that this is a very dangerous situation at times. Be very, very vigilant. Stay upbeat, be positive, and realize no one person and no one family can keep a child with autism safe all by themselves. Get the support you need, look around, be vigilant. It's better to take steps you feel that you don't need too soon than too late.
Well, we're about out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time.
But we want to let you know that in this new format, there are a lot of exciting things happening next week. On Monday, Bonnie Yates is going to be with us. I know on Wednesday, we're having Evelyn Kung answer your questions.
Okay.
Also on Thursday, I'm putting together the different dates here. So on Thursday, we have No, I've forgotten now. It's hard for me to remember. Oh, we have the folks from Motion Intel are going to be here talking about
What is
VR for people on the autism.
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality for people on the autism spectrum.
Interesting.
We also have Carrie Bowers as a guest next week, so a lot of stuff going on. That's going to be on Friday on our next show. We're having
Okay.
Carrie Bowers. So it's a big week next week. Yeah. So you're going to want to stay tuned and be with us. Don't forget, Bonnie Yates on Monday, your
Right.
legal rights, answering
Right.
your questions. You can send those in to us now. So thank you for being with us,
Thank
you
you.
guys. And until then, give your kiddos a hug for me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.